James Carter paced the sleek glass-walled penthouse, perched high above Manhattan's glittering skyline, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor as he pressed his phone tightly to his ear, his assistant's voice trembling on the other, and delivering the news that the fourth nanny this week had quit, unable to cope with Ethan's relentless crying. At 35, James was a tech mogul whose name adorned Times Square billboards, and Forbes covers his empire, built on ruthless ambition and sleepless nights in boardrooms, but the piercing wails of his 8-month-old son felt like a weight no. Corporate victory could lift, since his wife Sophia's death 4 months ago in a tragic car accident had left him a widower and a single father drowning in grief. Ethan's cries echoed through the penthouse's sterile corridors, a sound that had driven away every nanny in days, leaving James sleepless, his tailored suit rumpled and his dark hair disheveled as he snapped, "Find another one, I don't care what it costs," before slamming the phone down. Downstairs in the sprawling living room, Maya Johnson, a 28-year-old cleaner from the Philippines, moved with quiet precision, wiping down the towering windows that framed the city's chaos, her hands steady, despite the constant ache in her chest for her family in Manila. She had arrived in New York 6 months ago, chasing a better wage to fund her younger brother's college dreams and her mother's mounting medical bills for a chronic illness, but the city's cold, relentless pulse made her feel like a stranger. In its polished excess, her small rented room in Queens a far cry from the warmth of her childhood home. Ethan's cries reached her again, sharp and desperate, cutting through the hum of her thoughts, not the usual hunger or tiredness she knew well from raising her younger cousins in the Philippines, but a raw, anguished plea that tugged at her heart, making her pause mid-stroke her cleaning cloth forgotten on the windowsill. Drawn by an instinct she couldn't ignore, she set her supplies down and climbed the spiral staircase, her worn sneakers silent against the polished wood, her breath catching as the cries grew louder, more urgent with every step. She reached the nursery door slightly ajar and peered inside to find Ethan in his crib, his tiny face flushed, red tears streaming down his cheeks, his small fists punching the air in helpless frustration. No one else was there. No nanny, no assistant, just a baby drowning in distress. So Maya slipped inside, her voice soft as she whispered, "Shh, little one. What's wrong?" Her hands moving with practiced care to check his diaper, finding it soaked through his onesie damp with sweat from his relentless sobbing. She found fresh diapers and clothes in a nearby drawer, her movements gentle yet efficient, as she changed him, humming a Filipino lullaby her grandmother had sung to her years ago, the melody low and soothing. Lifting Ethan into her arms, she rocked, him slowly, her warmth steadying his trembling body, and within moments his sobs softened his breathing, slowing as he nestled against her shoulder, his tiny hand clutching her blouse. A sudden bellow of "What are you doing?" startled her, and she turned to see James in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space, his tailored suit pristine, but his blue eyes stormy with a mix of anger and exhaustion that made her heart skip. "Who gave you permission to touch my son?" he demanded, striding forward, his voice sharp enough to cut through the nursery's soft light, and Maya shrank back, still cradling Ethan, explaining softly, "He was crying, sir. No one was here. I couldn't leave him like this. My cousin's back home. I've cared for them." James's gaze flicked to Ethan, now quiet. His small face relaxed against Maya's shoulder, and something shifted in his expression, confusion softening the hard edges of his fury as he muttered, "How did you calm him?" almost to himself. Maya replied, "He needed changing and comforting, sir. I've looked after babies before my family in Manila taught me." And James stood frozen, his grief and pride warring within him, his hands clenching at his sides. After a long pause, he extended his arms. "Take him again, see if it works," his voice quieter now, almost uncertain. And as Maya complied, Ethan nestled closer, his cries fading entirely, leaving James staring in disbelief, his jaw tight. "What's your name?" he asked, finally breaking the silence, and she answered, "Maya Johnson. I'm with the cleaning agency from Manila, 6 months here. My brother needs school fees. My mother's sick." James watched her for a long moment, his eyes tracing the way Ethan's tiny hand gripped her blouse, then said, "Prepare his bottle. It's in the kitchen. Stay with him until I'm back." His tone clipped, but less harsh. Maya nodded, her heart pounding. With the weight of this unexpected trust, her mind racing with questions about this stern, broken man and what he might ask of her next as she carried Ethan downstairs to the kitchen, feeling the warmth of the baby against her chest, a flicker of purpose in a city that had so far offered her none. Maya stood in the penthouse kitchen the next morning. Ethan balanced on her hip as she warmed a bottle with one hand, her eyes scanning the sterile chrome appliances that felt as foreign as the city itself, her mind still reeling from James Carter's abrupt command to care for his son yesterday. She had returned at dawn as instructed, her cleaning agency supervisor thrilled at the extra hours. But Maya's heart was heavy with doubt, wondering if she was stepping into something far beyond her simple plans to earn and send money home to Manila. Ethan gurgled softly, his small fingers tugging at her hair, a stark contrast to the desperate cries of the day before, and she smiled, whispering, "You're feeling better today, aren't you, little one?" as she tested the milk's temperature. The sound of footsteps made her tense, and James appeared in the doorway, his suit impeccable, but his face etched with fatigue, his blue eyes softer than the storm they'd held yesterday. He watched her feed Ethan the baby, drinking eagerly, his tiny hands clutching the bottle, and said, "You're good with him. How did you learn this?" His voice low, almost curious. Maya hesitated, then explained, "My cousins in the Philippines I helped. Raised them. My mother worked long hours, so I learned early babies need patience and warmth, sir." James nodded, leaning against the counter, his gaze lingering on Ethan's calm face before he spoke again. "I've had nannies with degrees and certifications. None could do what you did yesterday in 5 minutes." Maya's cheeks warmed, but she kept her focus on Ethan, unsure how to respond to this man, whose wealth and grief seemed to fill the room like a shadow. He straightened suddenly and said, "I want you to be Ethan's full-time nanny live-in position, weekends off, salary of $30,000 a month, start tomorrow." Maya's breath caught the amount staggering enough to pay for her brother's entire college tuition and her mother's heart medication in a single year. But her stomach twisted with fear as she stammered, "Sir, I'm not trained. I just clean houses. I've never been a nanny. What if I make a mistake?" James's expression hardened slightly, his voice firm. "I don't need credentials. I need someone Ethan trusts. You calmed him when no one else could. That's what matters." She looked down at Ethan, his eyes half closed in contentment, and thought of her family's cramped home in Manila, her brother's dreams of becoming a teacher, her mother's weary smile, and said, "I need to think about it, sir. My family depends on me. I can't decide lightly." James's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Give me your answer by tonight," and left for his office, leaving Maya alone with Ethan, and a decision that felt like a crossroads. She spent the day caring for the baby, changing him, playing with soft toys on the nursery floor, singing lullabies in Tagalog, her voice steadying her nerves as she weighed her choice. By evening, she found herself in James's study, a room lined with books and awards, the air heavy with the scent of leather and polish, and noticed a small silver locket on the desk, half open, revealing a photo of a radiant woman with kind eyes. Sophia, she realized, her heart aching for the loss that hung over this home. James entered, catching her gaze on the locket, and his face softened for a fleeting moment as he said she loved Ethan more than anything, before closing the locket with a quiet click. Maya took a deep breath and said, "I'll take the job, sir, but I'll need your trust. I'll do my best for Ethan. But I'm learning too." James studied her, then extended his hand. "We have a deal, Miss Johnson. Your room's ready tomorrow. Bring what you need." As she shook his hand, her fingers trembling slightly, she felt the weight of his expectations, but also a spark of something else, a shared moment when he'd spoken of Sophia, his voice raw with unguarded pain. That night in her tiny Queens apartment, Maya packed a small suitcase, her mother's rosary tucked into a pocket, whispering a prayer for strength as she prepared to step into a world of wealth and sorrow, hoping she could bring light to a baby who needed her, and perhaps to a man who seemed to carry his heart like a locked vault. A fierce snowstorm swept through Manhattan, the city's skyline vanishing into a blur of white, as Maya bathed Ethan in the penthouse's nursery, her hands steady despite the howling wind rattling the windows, her third week, as his nanny marked 5 small victories, like his first smile when she tickled his feet. The lights flickered and then plunged the room into darkness, Ethan's soft cooing turning to a startled whimper, and Maya scooped him up, whispering, "It's okay, little one, just a little dark. We're safe." Her voice calm even as her heart raced, wondering if the storm would trap her here alone. Footsteps thundered up the stairs, and James's voice cut through the gloom. "Maya, are you okay?" His tone sharp with a concern she hadn't heard before, as he appeared in the doorway, his phone's flashlight casting shadows across his worried face. She nodded. "We're fine, sir, but Ethan's in the bath and it's getting cold." And James stepped closer. "Let me help. We'll get him out together." His usual distance replaced by urgency. They worked in tandem, wrapping Ethan in a fluffy towel, his tiny body shivering but curious about the dancing light, as Maya dried him and dressed him in warm pajamas, her movements quick yet gentle. James led them downstairs to the living room, where he lit a gas fireplace, the golden glow filling the space with unexpected warmth. As he checked his phone, muttering powers out across the city could be hours. Maya settled Ethan on a blanket, with his favorite rattle, her mind flashing to stories her mother told of typhoons in Manila, where families huddled together for safety, and she asked James, "Do you have candles, sir? We'll need more light." He rummaged through a cabinet, producing a box of candles and matches, and soon the room flickered with soft flames, creating an intimate cocoon against the storm's chaos. Ethan played happily, his giggles a stark contrast to the howling wind, and James sat on the floor nearby, watching with a faint smile, saying, "He's never this calm during disruptions. You're a miracle worker." Maya blushed, shaking her head. "He just needs to feel secure, so babies sense when we're steady." And she glanced at James, his eyes reflecting the firelight, a vulnerability there she hadn't seen before. They fell into a quiet rhythm, Maya telling Ethan a story about a brave turtle from her childhood village, James listening intently, then sharing a memory of Sophia teaching him to dance in this very room, his voice cracking as he admitted, "I haven't danced since she left." Maya met his gaze, her heart aching for his loss, and said softly, "You'll dance again, sir, when you're ready." And for a moment they sat in silence, the storm's roar fading into the background. As Ethan yawned, Maya rocked him, singing a soft Tagalog lullaby, and James moved closer, his shoulder brushing hers, the air charged with unspoken feelings. Without warning, he leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a kiss, tentative at first, then deepening with a hunger that spoke of months of loneliness, and Maya kissed him back, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and longing. The kiss broke, and they stared at each other breathless. Maya whispering, "This shouldn't happen, sir, you're my boss," and James nodded. "I know, but you make me feel alive again," his voice raw. But the next morning, with the power restored and the city waking under a blanket of snow, James was distant again. His suit pressed, his tone clipped, as he said, "Let's keep this professional, Miss Johnson. We can't confuse Ethan," leaving Maya hurt, and questioning if the warmth of last night was just a fleeting weakness in the storm's strange light. She focused on Ethan, singing to him, as she fed him, her heart heavy with the memory of James's touch, wondering if he'd ever let himself feel again, or if she'd misread the man behind the grief. Maya moved through the penthouse with a heavy heart a month after the snowstorm, her hands steady as she dusted the living room's sleek surfaces, but her mind replaying James's cold retreat into professionalism, his clipped good mornings and averted gazes slicing through the memory of their kiss like a blade through silk. Ethan, now 10 months old, babbled in his playpen, his tiny hands clutching a soft toy rabbit, a stark contrast to the inconsolable cries of her first day. Yet Maya felt a growing unease, sensing the fragile trust between her and James fraying under the weight of his unspoken grief. She had settled into her role as Ethan's nanny, her small room in the penthouse, a sanctuary where she kept a photo of her family in Manila, her mother's tired smile and her brother's hopeful eyes reminding her why she endured New York's loneliness. That morning, James had left early for a board meeting, his parting words a curt keep Ethan on schedule. Miss Johnson leaving her to navigate the day alone, her heart aching for the warmth they'd briefly shared. Deciding to tackle the master bedroom, a space she rarely entered, she climbed the stairs, Ethan napping soundly in his crib, the penthouse quiet save for the distant hum of city traffic filtering through the windows. The bedroom was a shrine to Sophia. Photos of her laughing on a beach, or cradling a newborn Ethan lining the walls, her presence a ghost that seemed to watch Maya's every move. As she dusted a high shelf, her cloth snagged on a loose panel behind. A row of leather-bound books, her curiosity piqued as she gently pried it open, revealing a small wooden box, its lock rusted and worn. Her heart raced, knowing she was trespassing into something private, but the silence of the penthouse and Ethan's peaceful sleep urged her forward, her fingers trembling as she used a hairpin, a trick learned from her cousins in Manila, to pick the lock with a soft click. Inside lay a single folded letter, its edges frayed as if handled countless times, the handwriting elegant but hurried, inked in deep blue. Maya hesitated, her breath shallow as she unfolded it, her eyes scanning the first line: "To my love, if you're reading this, I'm gone," and her stomach dropped, realizing it was Sophia's hand addressing someone, likely James. The letter confessed. Her shattering truth: Ethan was adopted, a secret. Sophia had kept fearing James's reaction to a child, not biologically, his detailing how she'd found him at a small upstate orphanage during a charity visit, his tiny face stealing her heart instantly. She wrote of forging documents to make Ethan appear theirs, terrified James's rigid pride would reject him, her words raw with love and guilt, pleading for forgiveness. "I couldn't bear losing you or him. My love, he's ours in every way that matters." Maya sat frozen on the bedroom floor, the letter trembling in her hands, her mind a storm of duty and dread, knowing this truth could unravel James's world, yet hiding it felt like betraying the fragile bond she'd built with him and Ethan. She tucked the letter back into the box, her fingers lingering on its worn edges before hiding it behind the panel, her heart pounding as she returned to her duties, her smiles to Ethan forced as she fed him mashed carrots, her thoughts consumed by the secret. Throughout the day she wrestled with her choice, imagining James's grief-stricken face, his potential rage, her own precarious place in this wealthy, sterile world as an immigrant cleaner turned nanny. By evening, her resolve hardened the weight of honesty outweighing her fear, and as James returned, his tie loosened, his face etched with exhaustion from another high-stakes meeting. She approached him in his study, her voice steady despite her racing pulse, saying, "Sir, I found something in your bedroom today. You need to see it." She handed him the letter, her fingers brushing his cold ones, and James's brow furrowed as he unfolded it, his eyes scanning the words, his face paling with each line, his breath hitching as he reached Sophia's confession. His jaw tightened, his eyes blazing with a mix of betrayal and fury, and he shouted, "This is a lie. Who put you up to this? Are you trying to destroy me?" His voice echoing through the study like thunder. Maya stepped back, her heart hammering as she stammered, "I found it behind a shelf, sir. It's Sophia's handwriting. I swear I thought you deserved the truth." But James cut her off, his voice venomous. "You thought you'd play games with my sons. Life, you're a cleaner who got too comfortable here. You think you can manipulate me with this." Tears stung Maya's eyes, her voice breaking as she said, "I'd never lie, sir. I care about Ethan. I'm sorry it hurts, but it's real. I found it by accident." But James roared, "You're lying. You made this up to worm your way into my life. Get out. You're fired. Leave tonight. I never want to see you again." The words hit like blows, Maya's tears spilling freely as she tried to explain, "I only wanted you to know the truth, sir. I care about you both." But James turned away, his fists clenched, pacing like a caged animal, dismissing her with a wave. Devastated, she stumbled to her room, her hands shaking as she packed her small suitcase, her mother's rosary slipping from her fingers as she choked back sobs, the life she'd begun to build here, crumbling in moments. Before leaving, she slipped into the nursery where Ethan slept, his tiny chest rising and falling, his face peaceful yet thinner than she remembered, and she leaned down, whispering goodbye. "My love, I'll always carry you in my heart," kissing his forehead, her tears falling onto his soft cheek. She left the penthouse, the city's lights blurring through her tears as she boarded a late bus to nowhere, her heart shattered by James's accusations and the loss of the boy she'd grown to love, like her own, wondering if her honesty had been a mistake or a necessary pain that might one day set them all free. Maya stepped off the creaking bus in Hudson, upstate New York, the autumn air sharp and cool against her skin as she clutched her worn suitcase, the weight of James's harsh words still echoing in her mind like a wound that refused to heal, her heart aching for Ethan's soft gurgles and the fleeting sense of belonging she'd felt in the penthouse. The small town's quiet streets, lined with maple trees ablaze in red and gold, felt like a world apart from Manhattan's relentless pulse, and Maya, with only $30 in her pocket, scanned a crumpled newspaper ad for a housekeeper. Position that had drawn her here, a desperate escape from the pain of being cast out. The Thompsons' home was a modest two-story cottage, its peeling white paint and overgrown garden a stark contrast to James's sterile penthouse. And when Mrs. Thompson, a gentle woman with silver hair and warm eyes, welcomed her, Maya felt a flicker of relief at the offer of $5,000 a month, plus a small attic room and meals. She settled into the routine, sweeping floors and cooking simple stews, the Thompsons' kindness a balm to her bruised spirit. But at night, alone in her narrow bed, Ethan's face haunted her, his tiny hands reaching, his cries that she could no longer soothe, making sleep elusive as she wondered if he was eating, sleeping, or still searching for her in his crib. One crisp morning, as she polished the Thompsons' oak dining table, Mrs. Thompson set a steaming mug of chamomile tea before her, her voice soft as she said, "You've got a heavy heart, dear. What's troubling you?" Maya's throat tightened and she confessed, "I left a job in the city caring for a baby boy, Ethan. I miss him so much. He felt like my own." And Mrs. Thompson's hand rested on hers, saying, "Love doesn't need a contract. If you gave him your heart, he carries it still." The words eased her pain but couldn't fill the void, and Maya threw herself into work, scrubbing floors until her hands ached, trying to drown out the memory of James's accusations. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, James was spiraling. Ethan's cries now a relentless wail that pierced the penthouse's sterile silence, 6 nannies having quit in 3 weeks, each citing the boy's refusal to eat or sleep, his small body growing. Thinner, his eyes dull and searching for something or someone lost. A pediatrician's visit confirmed James's worst fears, the doctor's voice grave as she diagnosed infant depression, explaining, "He's likely mourning a primary caregiver's sudden absence. Has there been a change recently, Mr. Carter?" The question struck like a blade, and James's pride crumbled as he admitted to himself that Ethan was grieving Maya, the woman he'd banished in a fit of rage, her honesty about Sophia's letter now a mirror to his own failures. Late one night, with Ethan sobbing for hours, James sat on the nursery floor rocking his son, whispering, "I know you want her, buddy. I messed up. I'm so sorry." His tears falling as he clutched Sophia's letter, rereading it with a clarity, unclouded by anger, accepting that Ethan was adopted but no less his son, and that Maya had only sought to honor the truth. Driven by desperation, he contacted Maya's cleaning agency, tracking her to Hudson through her former supervisor, who warned him, "She's hurt, Mr. Carter. You'd better make this right." The 4-hour drive through winding country roads gave James time to rehearse apologies, each one feeling hollow against the memory of his cruel words, and when he reached the Thompsons' cottage, his polished shoes sinking into the muddy path, he knocked, heart pounding. Mrs. Thompson answered, her eyes narrowing at his expensive coat and haggard face, saying sharply, "You're the man who broke her heart. What do you want with Maya?" James's voice cracked as he pleaded, "It's about Ethan, my son. He's sick, not eating or sleeping. I need to speak to her, please. It's urgent." After a tense pause, Mrs. Thompson relented, calling Maya from the backyard where she was raking leaves, her hands stilled by the sight of James, her expression a fortress of guarded pain as she approached, saying, "What do you want, Mr. Carter?" Her formal tone a reminder of the wall he'd built between them. James took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers. "I was wrong, Maya. I had the letter verified. It's Sophia's. It's real. I shouldn't have accused you. I was scared and lashed out. But Ethan's not well. The doctor says he's depressed. He misses you. He needs you." Maya's eyes welled with tears, her voice trembling as she said, "Hire another nanny, sir. You made it clear I'm nothing to you." The hurt raw in her words. James stepped closer, his voice low and earnest. "I'm not just here for Ethan. I miss you the way you made our home feel alive. I was a fool to push you away. Please come back, not as an employee, but for him, for us, I'll do better." Maya's heart wavered. Memories of Ethan's clinging hands battling the sting of James's accusations, and she said, "If I return, it's for Ethan, and things must change. No more yelling. No more treating me like I'm disposable. I need respect. Can you promise that?" James nodded, his eyes steady. "I'll prove it, not with words, but with time. Just give me a chance to make this right." Maya stood silent, her thoughts a storm of fear and hope, then nodded. "I'll come back, but for Ethan, not you, and if you hurt me again, I'm gone for good." Mrs. Thompson watched from the porch, whispering, "Be careful, dear, but trust your heart." As Maya packed her suitcase, the rosary in her pocket a quiet anchor as she stepped into James's car, wondering if she was returning to heal a broken child or risking her heart again for a man who might never fully open his. The rain-slicked drive back to Manhattan was a quiet pilgrimage, the car's headlights cutting through the misty dusk as Maya sat in the passenger seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, the weight of returning to James Carter's penthouse. A mix of hope and trepidation, her heart tethered to Ethan's fragile cries and the faint possibility of rebuilding what had been shattered. James drove with a focus that belied his nervous glances, his usual polished demeanor softened by the exhaustion etched into his face, and as they entered the city, the towering skyline loomed like a reminder of the life Maya had fled, yet now chose to re-enter for the sake of a child she loved. Inside the penthouse, Ethan's weak whimpers greeted them, a muffled echo of the vibrant boy she'd known, and Maya hurried to the nursery, her breath catching at the sight of him in his crib, his cheeks gaunt, his tiny hands flailing as if searching for her in the dim light. She scooped him up, whispering, "Oh, my love, I'm here now," her voice a soothing anchor as she rocked him, his small body melting against her, his sobs fading into soft hiccups, his fingers clutching her blouse. With a desperation that broke her heart, James stood in the doorway, his eyes glistening as he murmured, "It's like he's been holding his breath for you," and Maya nodded, her voice steady. "He's scared I'll leave again, sir. He needs time to feel safe." Her words a gentle challenge, to James as much as a promise to Ethan. She settled into a careful routine, preparing Ethan's favorite mashed peas, singing Tagalog lullabies as she fed him, watching his eyes brighten as he ate small spoonfuls, more than he'd managed in weeks, his trust in her slowly rekindling. James hovered nearby, his suit jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up as he offered a bottle, his hands awkward but earnest. And when Ethan pushed it away, Maya encouraged him. "Speak to him from your heart, sir. He'll feel it." And James tried, his voice soft. "Hey, buddy, let's try this, okay?" To his surprise, Ethan took a few sips, his gaze locking onto his father's, and James's face lit up with a rare, unguarded smile that warmed Maya's chest. Over the next weeks, James transformed, shedding the cold mogul's mask for small acts of warmth, coming home early to stack blocks with Ethan, laughing when the boy smeared applesauce on his tie, even humming off-key lullabies when Maya was busy in the kitchen. One night she found him in the nursery, sitting by Ethan's crib, whispering, "I know I'm not your blood, little man, but you're my son. I'll protect you always." His voice cracking as Ethan's tiny hand grabbed his finger, a quiet bond forming in the moonlight. Maya leaned against the door, her heart swelling, and said, "You're his father in every way that counts, sir." And James looked up, startled, then nodded. "I'm trying, Maya. You're showing me how." Their own connection grew cautiously, Maya enforcing boundaries. No more walls, no more treating her as just an employee. And James respected them, asking about her day, listening intently when she spoke of her brother's dream to teach, even offering to fund his tuition, a gesture that left her breathless with gratitude. One stormy afternoon, as Ethan napped, James found Maya stirring chicken adobo in the kitchen, the scent of her childhood filling the air, and said, "I got a call. Today, a deal to expand my company to Singapore. 2 years minimum, huge money." Maya's spoon paused, her heart sinking as she asked, "What did you say, sir?" her voice calm but her eyes searching his. James met her gaze. "I turned it down, Maya. It's not worth losing this. You, Ethan. You're my family now." And her breath caught, tears prickling as she whispered, "You mean that, don't you?" He nodded, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket and kneeling before her, opening it to reveal a sapphire ring, its deep blue catching the light. "Maya, I love you. Not as a nanny or an employee, but as the woman who taught me what matters. Marry me, be my partner, Ethan's mother, my equal in every way," he said, his voice raw with hope. Tears streamed down Maya's face as she nodded. "Yes, James, for you, for Ethan, yes." And they embraced, Ethan waking in his high chair, clapping as if sensing the joy, his giggles a melody of promise. Months later, they wed in a lush garden in Manila, Maya's family surrounding them, her brother in a crisp suit, her mother's frail hands clasping hers, Ethan toddling down the aisle with a ring pillow, tripping but grinning wide. 2 years. On, they lived in a cozier Manhattan home, Ethan now 3, calling Maya Mama and James Daddy, their mornings alive with pancake battles, flour dusting their faces as they laughed. James no longer the distant tycoon, but a father who burned toast, and a husband who danced with Maya to old Filipino songs. One evening, as they sat on the kitchen floor, Ethan nestled between them. Maya leaned into James, whispering, "We built this, didn't we?" And he kissed her forehead, saying, "Step by step, my love, and it's everything I never knew I needed." Their life wasn't perfect. Ethan had tantrums, James still overcooked eggs. Maya worried about her mother's health, but it was theirs, forged through forgiveness and love. A family bound not by blood, but by choice, laughing under a dusting. A flower's rain tapped the windows, complete in their imperfect, heartwarming world.